On today's show, the Houston Rockets lose to the Minnesota Timberwolves in their fourth Summer League appearance. Sheppard, though, had an impressive bounce back after a 1-of-7 start in this game. Plus, why you shouldn't be concerned about Reed's performance over these last two Summer League games. No need for overreactions. Plus, an interesting hypothetical about the Houston Rockets backup center situation. We're going to get all that and so much more on today's Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Mondays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. That's the best way that you can help our show, is to go by the YouTube video, comment anything, or just swing by and say, "Go Rockets." It helps us out a ton. Now, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more this summer because FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you for being an everydayer. So the Houston Rockets, fourth Summer League game. They're now 2-2 across Summer League, 2 straight losses in a row. 93-83 here against the Timberwolves and former Rockets legend Jae'Sean Nix. There it is.
You know what? I don't want to talk about Jae'Sean Nix. I just don't understand it. I don't know what's going on. And it's a lot of Jae'Sean Nix.
Just figured I'd go ahead and get the soundbite out of the way early in the episode. All right, so I've got a few different takeaways from this game. First off, I will say it's not much to take away wins and losses from Summer League. I will say, though, I do think one of the reasons the Rockets lost this game was the rebound discrepancy, specifically the second chance opportunities for the Timberwolves. The T-Wolves had 17 offensive rebounds in this game. The Rockets were just getting crushed on the glass, not nearly as active enough as they should have been. They got plenty of defensive stops. They were more than good enough defensively to win this game. They held the T-Wolves to just 40% shooting from the floor, but the T-Wolves had 85 shot attempts to just 64 shot attempts by the Rockets. Like, the T-Wolves literally just got more bites at the apple in this game because of how active they were on the offensive glass. So that's the big story as to why the Rockets lost this game. But to hone in specifically on Sheppard's performance here in this one, I've got a bunch of takeaways from Reed's play in this one. And I kind of wanted to dispel the notion that there should be any large looming concerns about Reed's performance, specifically over these past two games, right? There's no need to overreact to Summer League performances, period. You don't want to get too high or too low after what you see in Summer League. And yes, Sheppard was sensational in the first two games of Summer League. It was a great kind of glimpse into what could be his future as an NBA player. But likewise, just like we don't want to get too excited about those first two games, you don't want to get too low after these last two games, even though I do think there are still some major positives. And so I want to focus in on some of the specifics from this game first, and then get into some overarching takeaways that I have as it relates to how Reed's play in Summer League, how his role, I think, will translate and be different once he's actually playing at the NBA level with the rest of the Rockets' established roster instead of these, fringe NBA players at the Summer League level. So, and then also I've got a very interesting kind of thought exercise, if you will, for our third segment about the Rockets' backup center situation that I wanted to lob up to you guys so that we can have some fun little discussions in the YouTube comments, all that good stuff. But let's go ahead and getting into the specifics for Reed's game. He finished the game with 20 points on 9 of 17 shooting. He was 0 of 5 from downtown, 2 of 3 from the free throw line. He had 5 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals, 1 block, and 9 turnovers. A lot of turnovers in this game. That's going to be one of the points that I wanted to highlight here. First off, I will say I want to commend Reed because he started the game 1 of 7 from the floor. It was a really rough start for Sheppard. And a lot of it was to do with the fact that, similar to what happened against the Pistons, and the Timberwolves took a page out of that book, when you're the only primary offensive engine, initiator, whatever you want to call it for your team, the T-Wolves were just loading up on Reed Sheppard. And, unfortunately, hat tip to Jae'Sean. He actually did a pretty decent job defending him. But the T-Wolves as a whole, right, they really didn't have to worry about many of the other guys on the floor, right? So Nate Hinton took the place of Cam Whitmore in the Rockets Summer League starting lineup. So it was Nate Hinton, Nate Williams, N'Faly Dante, and AJ Griffin were the rest of the starting five for the Rockets. And aside from like AJ Griffin a little bit being able to put the ball on the floor, none of those other guys are going to create at a very high level. None of those other guys are real, big threats offensively. So all the T-Wolves had to do was load everything up on Reed Sheppard, and that was all she wrote, kind of. So I want to just highlight, though, that 1 of 7 start, Reed could have gotten his head down, right, acted, dejected, been frustrated with this play, and he could have spiraled and continued to have a bad game. Instead, what we saw is he started to settle in a little bit more as, near the end of the first half. He really started to kind of bounce back, hit a few shots, that kind of thing. And then he had a much better second half than he did the first half in general. And to start 1 of 7 and finish 9 of 17, that means he went 8 of 10. After starting 1 of 7, he hit 8 of his next 10 shots. That's an incredible bounce back. To be able to have that kind of a bounce back within a given game, right? It's one thing to have a bad game and then you bounce back the next game, right? That's kind of to be expected. If you have a bad game, you're going to want to have a strong bounce back the next game. But to be able to kind of course correct in the midst of a given game, go into halftime, make adjustments, come back out with a fresh mentality, whatever, a fresh mindset, and then to have the second half that Reed did is, I think, really impressive. And it's kind of, we've seen that all throughout Summer League where, he's still a rookie, he's still incredibly young. He's going to make mistakes, right? He's going to have a bad foul here or there. He's going to take a bad shot. He'll have a bad turnover, whatever. It's how he responds, how he reacts to those kind of little speed bumps, those bumps in the road, whatever you want to call them. And like specifically in this game, he had a point early in the first half where he turned the ball over. He had his pockets picked. Like, right there, he was trying to set up the offense, and right there on the perimeter, one of the Timberwolves players, picked his pocket, went the other way, scored. And immediately after that, Reed came back down. Rockets ran a fresh set, and Reed, calm, cool, collected, didn't let the previous turnover get him down. He ran a beautiful pick and roll, and it led to him delivering a fantastic bounce pass through traffic to Orlando Robinson, who then was able to finish at the rim. Right? Like, so instead of, again, letting those mistakes kind of cause like mental lapses and weigh him down the rest of the game, he just, like, memory of a goldfish, right? Come back up, fresh possession, fresh opportunity. What are we going to do? And I love that mentality, right? He's not going to let it get him down. And I think that speaks to some of the toughness that we talked about, right? That he talked about during his intro presser, the toughness that has been grilled into him since he was a kid from his mom, from his parents, former Hoopers themselves, the toughness that the Rockets have talked about that they've seen in Reed Sheppard as they've been getting to know him. He's not just going to roll over and give up. And despite, if he's struggling, whatever. So I just wanted to highlight here that bounce back within a game, starting 1 of 7 and finishing 9 of 17, is really impressive and really important for him. Now, I do have a few other notes specifically about this game. I want to talk about the turnovers and want to talk about his defense and his three-point shooting and some kind of bigger takeaways that kind of, spin off of those 3 different statistical categories. As well as we're going to get to our backup center hypothetical. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Look, I love sports. I love them so much, I never really want them to stop. But when you got playoffs winding down and then you get fewer and fewer games and maybe the sports just aren't sportsing the way you want them to, look, FanDuel lets you keep the sports going whenever you want. All you have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime that you're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. All you have to do is head on over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. In fact, you can head on over to FanDuel.com right now and take a look at the outright betting favorites to win Rookie of the Year next season. The favorite is not Reed Sheppard. Give you a second to guess the favorite right now. Going once, going twice. Sold. It is Zach Edey is the favorite to win Rookie of the Year at plus 600. Reed Sheppard's right behind him, though, at plus 700. And the third favorite Zachary Richesay at plus 800. So for all those odds and so much more, head on over to FanDuel.com. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, a few more takeaways that I had about Reed Sheppard in this one against the Minnesota Timberwolves. I'm just going to start kind of I wanted to talk about the three-point shooting, the turnovers, and the defense. Let me start with the three-point shooting because that should be the quickest one. Look, we haven't seen Reed is shooting sub 30% from three in Summer League. Not great, right? Especially when you're billed as a shooter. I would say don't worry about, don't freak out about the three-point shooting. The shooting seems and feels very real with Reed Sheppard. I think a big reason for why the numbers don't look great right now is because he is being asked right now in Summer League, he's being asked to do more and shoulder more of an offensive burden than he was ever asked to do at Kentucky. And so far, I think he's done a pretty good job adjusting and handling a role where he's in charge of 75, 80% of the team's offense when he's on the floor, bringing the ball up, initiating, running pick and roll, creating for other guys, creating for himself. He's doing a fantastic job running the offense, more so than he ever had to do at Kentucky. And because of that, I think it's taken a bit of a toll on him, right? He's not as fresh, and a lot of the three-point shots in this game in particular, he had a couple looks that were completely wide open. Couple just complete catch and shoot spot up looks, and he was short on what felt like every three attempt in this game. I think a big part of it is maybe tired legs, right? From just he's doing a lot more. He's got more defensive attention on him. He's having to exert way more energy to try and open himself up or create opportunities for his teammates. And I know there are some people who are like, oh my God, he's young. He shouldn't be getting tired after four summer. You try and go out there and do it, right? You try and go out there and play against a defense that is specifically keyed in to stop you and pretty much only you, right? He's the number one name on the opposing team scouting report right now in Summer League. So give him some grace. Give him some time. I think that one of the best parts is he's still finding ways to be successful despite the three ball not going in, right? That's what a big part of his efficiency and his capability to be effective from the mid-range is doing for him. The fact that he was still able to go 8 of 10 after starting 1 of 7, even though the three ball wasn't falling, that speaks volumes about the fact that he's not just this one-dimensional, all he can do is spot up and stand at the three-point line and that's it, right? He can find other ways to get himself going offensively, other ways to keep the defense guessing about what he's going to do to continue to still be able to run the offense and create for himself and others. I think that's huge. I think that's a really important takeaway that we should have about his game is he's not a one-dimensional player. And again, I think the three-point shooting is going to be much, much better at the next level. More on that here in just a second. But the turnovers, some of them, like when he got his pocket picked on the perimeter, those are tough, right? Those turnovers are going to hurt you. But at the same time, some of his turnovers come from him just trying to thread the needle a little bit too much by creating for his teammates, right? And those to me are not necessarily bad turnovers. If you see where his processing was at, where if you see what he was trying to accomplish with a pass, a lot of his turnovers in this game happened by way of he was running trying to run the offense, and he had the ball say on the right side of the court and the defense was loading up, and so then he tried to swing it back to the left side with a little cross court pass or whatever, and he just needs to get better at not telegraphing those passes to where the right idea is there to swing it to the open shooter in the weak side corner or something like that. He's going to get better at that. And again, there's going to be times where he's, still making some mistakes here and there, but you see the right idea there. And I think that's the big takeaway is that he's just experimenting a little bit with some of these passes. None of them to me felt like crazy bad passes or where you walk away and you're like, oh, that was a terrible turnover. A lot of them were more or less generally good passes that were just a little bit off the mark, that kind of thing. So overall, not a big issue with the 9 turnovers. Obviously you need to clean it up, but that's what Summer League is for. It's for flexing, your passing ability. It's for testing new things out. It's for just trying to go out there and showcase what you can do. And you're going to make some mistakes along the way. That's okay. Last thing, and this one is going to be more so, this to me has been the most, unfortunately, standout negative thing about Reed Sheppard's play so far through Summer League is that individually, his man-to-man defense has been less than stellar. His team defense is incredible. He has great defensive IQ. The processing speed is there. He understands where to be, how to rotate, but he does get beat a lot one-on-one defensively. And I do think that there's going to be a situation where you can't really leave Reed on an island, at least not right now, because he gets blown by a lot defensively. And a big part of that is going to be just little adjustments defensively, right? Understanding your positioning, understanding how to shade a guy to his weaker arm so that he doesn't have like a straight line drive to his strong arm, understanding where your help is defensively so that you can funnel a guy to your help defender. So if Reed Sheppard's playing up on the perimeter and you really want to play up on a guy because he's a really good shooter, then understanding, okay, if I've got Jabari over here, in my right-hand corner, I'm going to funnel that shooter towards Jabari. Or if you're playing really up, if it's a pick and roll coming, are you fighting hard over the screen? Are you going under the screen? Like different things defensively, different defensive principles to help him better understand how he's going to guard guys on the perimeter. Because I think from a team perspective, his team defense is great. I think he is going to struggle a little bit right out of the gate, especially at the NBA level with the speed and power and quickness of some of these guys, the handling ability of some of these guys. And that's going to be something that the coaching staff is going to have to work on with him. But he has a very similar build to Fred VanVleet. And Fred VanVleet understands and does just fine at point of attack defense, right? He's not a liability on the perimeter whatsoever. And I do think that Reed has the physical gifts to get to that point. It's just right now, some of it is, him not necessarily not him being down in his stance, but just it's a problem right now. That's the best way that I can put it out. It's a problem. Now, thankfully, there's not, it's summer league. He's not getting picked on every single possession. They're not like running straight ISOs on Reed Sheppard every possession of every play. But at the same time, at the NBA level, that is a weakness that other teams will pick on. So I'm curious to see how Ime Udoka and the coaching staff work with him on that weakness to get him to a place where he's not going to be a liability in isolation at the next level. Now, going back to the three-point shooting here for just a moment, I wanted to point out here that once Reed Sheppard is playing alongside the rest of the Rockets' core roster, all the other young guys, VanVleet, Dillon Brooks, everybody else, Steven Adams, Jock Landale possibly, he's going to have so much less attention focused on him, and he'll be in a much, much better position to just do his job as the offensive conductor, right? Because if teams have to put their best perimeter defenders on, say, Jalen Green and Cam Whitmore or Jalen Green and Fred VanVleet or whatever, he's going to have much less attention dedicated on him to try and slow him down. And he'll be able to play more so his role, which is similar to Fred VanVleet's role, right? Where he's kind of this combo off-ball presence where, yes, he can run some of the offense, run some pick and roll, set guys up, but he's also really adept at being a catch-and-shoot threat or attacking off the catch once the defense is already scrambling after a guy like Sengun or after a guy like Jalen has already initiated the offense on a given possession. I think that's really where he's going to thrive. And so I'm not panicking. I suggest you don't panic about these past couple performances in Summer League where you're worried about what it's going to look like at the next level. It's not going to look like this at all because he's not going to be the number one guy on the opposing team scouting report at the next level. That's how it looks right now at Summer League. It is not going to look that way once he's playing with the other Rockets at the NBA level. He's going to get to stay in his lane, play his role. He'll get plenty of catch and shoot opportunities. He'll have plenty of opportunities to run the offense outside of other guys running things like Sengun, like Jalen, like Fred VanVleet. And when he's given those opportunities, I think it's going to look a lot better because he's going to have way more weapons to work with on the court instead of right now where especially these past two games, the Pistons and the Wolves are just kind of ignoring the other guys on the floor. They're really not worried about the other players. Their sole purpose has been trying to slow down Reed Sheppard. And he's still been able to put up numbers despite that happening to him on the offensive side of the floor, having the defense focused in on him. So I think that's an important takeaway to have here is this is not going to be the case once he's playing at the next level. Coming up, want to share a couple more notes about the other performances in this game before getting into our backup center hypothetical for the Houston Rockets. We're going to get there in just one moment. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, so I've mentioned this in a couple times already. I have been less than impressed with N'Faly Dante through these summer league games. I don't know where the Rockets stand on him internally, what they're looking to get out of him. He's on the two-way slot right now. If I were the Rockets, I would do everything that I could to move on from N'Faly Dante and give Orlando Robinson one of those two-way contracts if he's open to a two-way deal. He's been a really impressive force through summer league so far in this game. He had 12 points, 9 rebounds, had an assist, had a steal, had a block. He's working on that outside shot. He managed to hit 1 3, his only 3 that he attempted in this game. So he's working on becoming a stretch 5. And ultimately, he's just been the better player between the two. And maybe there's something there that Dante has defensively that they're really intrigued by. Obviously Orlando Robinson spent time at the NBA level, so he should be the better player between the two of them right now. But it just hasn't translated on the court, and the Rockets so far have been going to they've been benching N'Faly Dante consistently throughout these games in favor of playing Orlando Robinson like starters level minutes. In fact, I think Orlando Robinson had the second most minutes in this game behind Reed Sheppard. Just double checking really quick. Yeah, Reed Sheppard played 33 and a half minutes, and then next up on the Rockets roster was Orlando Robinson with just over 28 minutes played in this game. So that's been a consistent factor here where Orlando Robinson has been a key piece for this Rockets Summer League squad, and I would love to see the Rockets extend him a two-way offer and clean up one of the other two-way slots. Maybe they move on from Nate Williams. Maybe they move on from N'Faly Dante. Those two guys, Nate Williams, I know they really like him. I know he's a great kind of hustle guy. He's got a great motor. I'm sure he's great to have around in practices and stuff, but I don't know if he's ever going to get to a place where the outside shot is real. And I don't know what more Nate Williams would need to bring to the table to, to guarantee himself a spot within a rotation somewhere. I can see a much easier pathway for Orlando Robinson to cracking an NBA rotation and earning a standard NBA contract than I can for Nate Williams at the end of the day. As far as just the type of player that they are, the roles that they fill on a given team. And again, Orlando Robinson has been the standout performer in Summer League aside from Reed Sheppard and Cam Whitmore, who has since been shut down. But and then another, kind of so-so game for AJ Griffin. 15 points, 5 of 10 shooting, 2 of 6 from downtown, 3 of 3 at the free throw line, had 5 rebounds, had an assist, had a steal. Some okay-ish defense. I still haven't. I really wanted to see more out of AJ Griffin defensively than I did in Summer League. It's been kind of disappointing to say the least there. And the three-point shooting hasn't completely jumped off the page. It hasn't been horrible, but it's also been kind of just average. It's going to need, the three-point shooting is going to need to really pop, and the defense is going to have to be considerably better for him to have a chance to make the Rockets rotation. Not that he's going anywhere, not that they're giving up on him. He's still on a standard NBA deal. He's going to be on the barring anything crazy happening, he's going to be on the roster, part of the 15-man roster when the season starts. But a lot's going to have to change for AJ Griffin. He's going to have to get a lot better in a couple different categories, the three-point shooting and the defense specifically, if he wants a chance to carve out a spot in the Rockets rotation and try and see if he can earn himself a role here in Houston. All right, let me get to this hypothetical here that crossed my radar the other day. And I'm going to have to apologize because I read through so much stuff on social media and different Rockets group chats and all that stuff. And I forget where I saw this, but I thought it was an interesting kind of, not brain teaser, but thought exercise. And I wanted to propose it here on the show. When we look at the Rockets' second unit for this upcoming season, obviously one of the biggest additions that the Rockets made this past year and we're most looking forward to having this next season is the addition of Steven Adams. Steven Adams gives the Rockets a new dimension at that 5 spot, something that they didn't have on the roster last year, something that nobody else on the current Rockets roster can provide. which is a legitimate big, a big-bodied center, somebody who can go out there and deal, a brick wall of a man who can deal with some of the bigger bodies, the Jokic's, the Embiid's, a great rebounding presence, another stabilizing veteran presence, a really impressive screener. Like, you think about the massive, like, bone-crushing screens that Steven Adams is able to set and how that's going to be able to free up different guys like Jalen Green, like Reed Sheppard, like Fred VanVleet, right? One of the reasons that Fred VanVleet and Alperen Sengun worked so well together last year is because Alp sets really solid screens, and Alp also has a lot of gravity when he rolls to the basket, which then opens up his perimeter players, whether it's Fred, whether it's Jalen, whatever. And then when Alp wasn't on the floor, there was not a single person on the Rockets roster for the majority of the season until Jock Landale kind of found his way back into the rotation. Nobody else on the Rockets roster could set screens at the level that Alp could, and that was problematic because then that actively hurt the other perimeter players and their ability to get open and create offense. So we're expecting Steven Adams to bring a lot to this Rockets team. However, Steven Adams is a little older. He's on a 1-year deal, so it is expiring. And there are a bunch of teams out there that would very much be interested, I'd wager, in acquiring Steven Adams. Teams that, maybe are lacking a little bit of depth at the 5 spot or are looking for a serviceable starting center, because realistically, if he's healthy, Steven Adams is absolutely a starting quality center in today's NBA. Now, you probably can't run him, starters minutes right out of the gate, especially fresh off his rehabilitation, all that. But where I'm going with this is, if you could get a team like, say, the Lakers to offer a future unprotected first-round draft pick for Steven Adams, and it doesn't have to be the Lakers, it could be realistically any team in the association, right? It could be any team that is in desperate need of a big man. You could look at the New Orleans Pelicans. That's an option, right? The Pels still don't have their center situation figured out. Would you trade Steven Adams for a future, like, premium asset, like a future first-round pick, ideally one that's further out, a few years out, so that it's, got some longevity to it, some potential future upside, that kind of thing? Would you trade Steven Adams for a future unprotected first-round pick, assuming you get back no salary, or if you could trade Steven Adams? I think his salary is low enough. In fact, let me double check this. Double checking, doing some live research as we're recording. All right, Steven Adams' salary, $12.6 million. His salary is just under the current salary for the mid-level exception. So theoretically, the way the new MLE works, right? You could trade Steven Adams to a team that hasn't used any of their MLE yet, and they could just absorb him into that MLE slot, essentially. So there's a lot of different ways that you could trade Steven Adams and get back an asset without having to take on any future salary or take on another player, what have you. I say this because Jock Landale has actually been pretty impressive so far for the Boomers in Olympics play so far throughout the friendly matches. And we saw Jock Landale play significantly better to end the season this past year. And again, a big part of his slow start and his struggles throughout, about 2/3 of last year was he just wasn't healthy, right? He was playing on a bum ankle. He tried to come back. He probably came back a little bit sooner than he probably should have. Didn't have the same burst, the same lift, the same mobility on that ankle. He just didn't look like himself, right? If Jock Landale can play at this level, the level that he played at to end the season, and the level that he's playing at right now in overseas play, I don't know why the Rockets wouldn't want to just hold on to Jock Landale and have him be their backup big man, especially if you can get some serious value for Steven Adams. That's the thing, is if you can get a future unprotected first-round pick that's at least a few years out for Steven Adams, would you move him and have Jock Landale be the backup center? Or do you think Steven Adams is largely, I don't want to say untouchable, but would you rather see what Steven Adams can bring to the table for the Rockets before moving on from him? And I'm genuinely torn on this because, again, I was incredibly excited about the Steven Adams acquisition when it happened, and I'm still really looking forward to seeing what he looks like on the floor playing alongside some of these other Rockets guards, right? How he's able to open things up for them. Again, talked about the screening, the rebounding, everything that he brings to the table. He's a good player. But if Jock Landale can give you like 80% of what Steven Adams theoretically can give you, and you can get back a premium asset for Steven Adams, shouldn't you do it? Like, that's kind of what I'm getting at, right? Is there a team out there like the Lakers or the Pelicans or some other miscellaneous third team that would potentially offer a future first round pick for Steven Adams? That's all I'm getting at. Is an interesting brain teaser, kind of, thought exercise. I'm curious your thoughts. Would you trade Steven Adams for a future first round pick from a team like the Lakers or the Pelicans and just opt to have Jock Landale be the backup 5? Or would you rather keep Steven Adams and forego the future asset? Let me know your thoughts in the YouTube comments, because I'm genuinely torn. I don't know which direction I'd ultimately go on that. I think I'm leaning towards keeping Steven Adams, but I thought it was an interesting hypothetical. I wanted to pitch it up to you guys, see your thoughts on it. But with that, that's going to do it for today's episode. As always, thank you so much for checking out the show. If you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing wherever you listen to your podcasts, or on YouTube, just search Locked On Rockets, like, comment, subscribe. If you're on Apple or Spotify, a 5-star review helps us out a ton. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.